It's about time, Fatty. It's about time we did a bonus episode of the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast. I mean, we are, 17 episodes in now, and we have yet to add to our regularly scheduled programming. Now, I've been here, though, ready to go, but you've been off, riding and hiking and bragging on Strava about all your high peaks you have tackled in Colorado. So I hope you are all rested up and revved up to give our listeners what they deserve, and that is a little extra content in their feed.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. I have 5 14er peaks, 2 on bike, 3 on foot. I've been having the time of my life in Breckenridge. That is the topic for another episode, because while I've been knocking out my Leadville 100,000 foot challenge in the Rocky Mountains, just having the time of my life, I am absolutely revved up for the next part of our season, because our first guest in the second half of this season is Rebecca Rusch, the Queen of Pain. She is here to talk about the RPI challenge, and I'm recovered because while I was tackling all these 14ers, I was also staying on top of my recovery with Floyd's of Leadville CBD products. A fatty vacation just would not be complete without daily rub downs and some Floyd's recovery balm and some Floyd's recovery mix, post hike, post ride, post whatever, just every single time.
Yeah, our bonus episodes are void of most of our regular sponsor mentions, but Floyd's is the exception. They are the presenting sponsor here of the show, and they really help make this content happen for us. So stick in your earbuds, folks. Make a recovery shake, rub some balm on your sore legs, and get filled in on a terrific way to challenge yourself this summer and apply some of that Leadville fitness and enthusiasm.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks again, as always, Floyd's of Leadville for sponsoring the show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. This is season 3, episode 17 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I am Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I'm Eldon Nelson, but everyone calls me Fatty. Please, just call me Fatty.
Man, what a year, Fatty. 2020 has turned the world on its head, and it's not even over.
No, it is not. The world is upside down and spinning in the wrong direction. We're all just doing the best we can. First coronavirus turns into the pandemic. Then the death of a black man at the hands of a cop turns into unrest and reexamination of racial inequalities. And all these headlines, of course, had a direct effect on the bike industry and the people who ride bikes, right? And more bikes have been sold, which is great. Everstein has become a thing, and that's very cool. But in person, the in-person events have been forced into postponement and cancellation mode due to the virus. Most notably, the namesake of this podcast. And calls for police reform and social change turned that 200-mile gravel race in Kansas, the one that we're still waiting for a name for, that's turned on its head and forced the whole industry to ask itself, what are we going to do to include more people?
Yeah, Fatty, I love baseball, but one thing has disturbed me on some of the forums I read regarding baseball, and that's fans who suggest that the whole season should be scrapped, that because of all this stuff you just mentioned, that baseball should just be scrapped. Just cancel 2020, they say, and come back in 2021. That's somehow, that abbreviated or augmented season argument is just, somehow a season like that is just not worth playing. That's the argument I read. It's good to see, though, that there are plenty folks in our little world that don't subscribe to that defeatist attitude. I see our listeners, for instance, resetting goals for 2020, getting creative with fitness and training, and organizers coming up with ways to keep riders engaged while keeping them at a distance. The last big event I did, Fatty, was Rebecca's Private Idaho. That was Labor Day weekend of 2019. The last big weekend of the summer. And it was a terrific event. I was there with friends, the best man at my wedding, in fact, who did the tater tot. So did Mrs. Hottie. She was in the tater tot. It was her first gravel event. I did the baked potato. It was hard, really hard. The event, well run, welcoming, a fantastic expo, by the way. And side note, best swag bag ever. Usually it's a t-shirt and a gel shot and some type of coupons in the bottom of that bag. But at RPI, I got a cookbook, a travel mug, a long sleeve t-shirt. That's a rarity. Mrs. Hottie was able to demo an actual gravel bike. Plus, the town of Ketchum is right there at your fingertips. So an A-plus event. But like we said, 2020, wow.
Yeah, well, at least you got to go out with a bang, right? I've been to RPI twice. I have loved it both times. But, like a lot of things this year, the events of this year have forced Rebecca's Private Idaho to sort of reimagine how she was going to pull off this event. Earlier this season, Rebecca Rusch, fresh off the Iditarod Trail, helped to refocus our cycling season, reeling in postponements due to COVID-19 with the Giddy Up Challenge. Both you and I loved that. And it was, in a way, the shot in the arm, just what we needed. Something to ride for in the face of uncertainty on the bike event calendar. So we talked with Rebecca about the Giddy Up Challenge leading into that event. And now she is back to talk with us about her next challenge, which is a much bigger deal and with a lot more stuff involved. And it is going to give everyone who listens and tries this out something to shoot for this summer while we maintain our distance. So we're super excited to have for the rest of this episode, Rebecca Rusch, the Queen of Pain. Reba, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Fatty. Hi, Hottie. How are you guys?
Thanks for listening to our little diatribe. You sat by very, very calmly and respectfully.
Well, since this is a podcast and not a video cast, I was smiling the whole time listening to you guys. You do a good job getting everybody stoked.
Let's first start off with the Giddy Up Challenge. Rebecca, just give us a quick recap. I mean, that thing came off, I think, bigger than a lot of people expected, bigger than you expected. What was the end result with that challenge back in Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, and that was kind of, I made something up based on, we already talked about it, but on I needed something to be motivated for. And what ended up happening that was a really beautiful surprise is that obviously other people needed some motivation too and wanted to do something productive for COVID relief. And so in the end, we had 11 countries participate around the world. We had 900 runners and riders from around the world. There was a Everesting World Championship record set by Katie Hall. And we raised over $130,000 for COVID relief and the organizations that we partnered with that are doing good work there. And really the beautiful thing that happened, all of those things I just mentioned, but I really felt this community aspect. And even through social media, I didn't feel like I was riding alone that day. And I really felt for the first time in 2020 like I was connected to my bike people and connected to the rest of us. And I had a lot of people saying, it was an event for them and that they really needed it and that we got together and we did something good as a community. And so that is really what spawned, after seeing the surprise success of that, that is really what has motivated me to reimagine Private Idaho for this year and not cancel it, but instead take what I learned from the Giddy Up Challenge and blow it up and do it again, but in a bigger, better, more expansive way.
Yeah, and we need to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room that you just alluded to, which is the coronavirus and the effect that it is having right now in Ketchum, in Utah, in LA. We're sort of in three different places, but all of us seeing big things happening. I'm seeing in Utah the number of cases has doubled since the last time we talked per day, and the number of deaths daily, and this is the really sad part, has also doubled per day. I know that you have witnessed secondhand, meaning that you've been a first responder to a number of people who have had problems, that because of COVID-19. Tell me how things are now.
Yeah, we've hit the podium in Idaho here a couple times, which is a podium I'm not very proud of. But, for a while early on, we were the number one growth rate in the country. And now we're back up to number 3 as far as increasing cases in Idaho, right behind Arizona and Texas. And so, while a lot of event directors and participants, we were all kind of holding out and social distancing was working, and we're sitting there thinking, can we still have our events? And it's not the responsible thing to do. I can't in my right conscience, bring 1,500 people here to my hometown as much as I would love to and I want to. It's not the right year for it. And so I needed to pivot, and I needed to figure something else out that would be safe, but that could still meet my fundraising goals, our cycling goals, our community goals. And so I made up an entirely different business model and a hybrid event model for Private Idaho. And that's what I'm calling the Private Idaho Challenge. And we're launched, we're open, we're running. So it's something new. And I've had to really, like all of us this year, 2020 has been a really crappy, difficult year. And we have to pivot, we have to adapt, we have to work together. And, it's like being lost in the middle of a race. I can't go back, I can't go forward. Or I can't go back, but I've got to go forward. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with Private Idaho in a different kind of format.
Yeah, Fatty, that's exactly why I brought up that whole baseball point, or, our open there, that, I'm a little tired of seeing this defeatist attitude too, at least in the baseball community. It kind of wears me out. And I'm glad to see folks in the cycling community who've said, no, we're going to move ahead with this thing. And for you, Rebecca, this is kind of like your moment on the Iditarod Trail this year, where you got off course, right? And things looked really bad, and you had a choice to make right there. I could turn around, I could cash this in, or I could move forward. And your choice was, no, let's push forward. Let's see what happens. Something good could come out of this. Yeah, and
I'm going to tell you, Hottie, this has been a really hard year, and there's been a lot of days where I do want to give up, and there's been a lot of times that I do want to just pull the covers over my head and just kind of scratch this year off the calendar. But we can't do that. And I've learned, like you said, from the Iditarod experience, is that pushing forward instead of sitting down in the snow, that's what my races have trained me to do. So I'm trying to do that with my business. The hard part, and the Iditarod was probably a little more clear, because you get from point A to point B as best you can. And in business and in life, sometimes, that's not as clear as, a point on a map and a navigation point that you need to get to. And so it has been really hard to reimagine and redefine things, but I'm super excited, and I'm really proud of my team and what we're pulling off, what we did with Giddy Up and what we're doing now, because we're trying. And I think it's going to work. I think it's a really cool idea, because I'm basically taking the way that I train and the things that I need, from mental health and wellness to mobility and stretching and rest and nutrition and a coach. I'm taking all that stuff that I use anyway to help me and my team to perform and get to an event, and I'm bringing it to everybody else. I'm basically opening up RPI Challenge as kind of a global team in training, and we'll all prepare together with access to my network, and then execute a really cool ride challenge on Labor Day weekend that's anything from 20 miles to a 3-day stage race. And so I'm excited about it. We're launching. It's totally new. I feel like I'm at the start line of Leadville right now, and the gun is about to go off, and my hands are sweating. I'm excited, but I'm freaked out. I'm scared, and there's all these other people around me, and they're all facing the same direction, and Ken's about to shoot that shotgun. And that's the point we are with RPI Challenge right now, which is exciting but terrifying at the same time.
Well, let me say that I love the agility that you were showing with this event. Now, some of our listeners will have gotten email or seen on the web or, wherever what the RPI Challenge is. But for those who haven't, and, as sort of a reminder for people who maybe skim their email, tell us the story of what the RPI Challenge is and who it's for, and how long it's going to go. Just sort of give us the grand overview.
Yeah, the overview. And, there's a cool video I did on my website, RebeccasPrivateIdaho.com, and you can check out some of that stuff. Registration's open now, but in the grand scheme of it is we're starting Monday, July 13th, with an 8-week all-inclusive training program. And that's going to include Training Peaks coaching from my coach, Tim Cusick, 8-week nutrition program from Namrita, we've got basically lots of doctors and experts. And so it's a full 8-week program that includes training, nutrition, mobility. Weekly content is going to be uploaded, 2 live sessions each week, one called Science and Stoke and one called Rush Hour, where I'm going to bring in pros who are talking about how they train, what they eat, what they do, how do they stay motivated. And so really it's 8 weeks of bringing you into my world and really helping prepare you for the best ride of your life. And there's a community aspect. So I'm going to be training right alongside everybody else, and we'll be doing very similar workouts every day. So we can commiserate on that set of intervals that were really hard, and celebrate as we're getting more fit and sharing. And so it's really making a big giant team to prepare for Labor Day weekend, which is the ride challenge. And then what happens on Labor Day weekend is we'll help people and instruct people on how to design your own course that mimics one of the private Idaho courses. So you'll need to meet the elevation profile and distance wherever you are, whether it's the Tater Tot 20 miler or all the way to the Queen's Stage race, which is a 3-day stage race. And so that will be recorded through Strava. People will submit their files, and there'll be a leaderboard of, winners and podium. And really it's, you might think, how am I going to create private Idaho course at home? Garmin has a route building app. Strava has a route building app. And really you just need to hit those 2 criterias of distance and elevation. And if you live in Texas, you're going to maybe have to put in more mileage to get the actual elevation. So you've got to hit those 2 markers. But I think it's going to be really cool. And then, we'll have awards, we'll have parties, we'll celebrate online. And hopefully at the end of this 8 weeks, people really are a better version of themselves. And I think about people like, all the races are canceled. Why should I train for an event? And what I've found, I've been an athlete for 4 decades, and I've found that even if there's not a race on the calendar, I'm not as accountable as I would like to be, and I'm not the best version of myself. And so I need a challenge, but I also need community because I can't do it alone. And left to my own defenses, I'm pretty lazy. And so the whole point of this is to provide a challenge, provide a community, and give people something to train for. But ultimately, we want to train to be the best version of ourselves. If you guys all know, if you're fit, you're rested, you're a better mom, you're a better employee, you're happier, you're a better parent, and you're a better partner to people, and we're just happier. And this is the kind of year where, man, we all need to think about our health and wellness personally. And then the second really big part is RPI has always been a fundraising ride, and this year is no different. And this year I'm really excited because we're targeting our efforts to things that are in the moment. And so through the Be Good Foundation, all of our efforts for Private Idaho are going to go to cycling groups that are fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion and getting more people riding bikes. And so this version, the RPI Challenge, is going to provide more access to people. I mean, not everyone can come to Idaho. And so this way, anyone around the world can take part. And my hope is that we're going to gradually chip away, hopefully faster, not gradually, but chip away at getting more people on bikes and letting more people experience the joy and the healing and the empowerment of being able to ride a bicycle.
A quickie on the course creation, Rebecca. I understand, too, there's also a component about how much you're going to want people to achieve so much dirt to pavement, too, as they create their courses. Is that how you're trying to structure that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to mimic what the private Idaho courses are. And of course, those are pretty much 90% dirt. It's a gravel event. But I also want people to be able to depending on where they live, I want a lot of people to be able to take part. And so I have put down, to be on the, in the rankings on the official leaderboard, I'm asking people to hit the elevation and the mileage and have their route be 50% gravel. And that's just really I like the fact that people are maybe exploring outside their neighborhoods, exploring places they've never been. And I'm kind of a dirt girl at heart. So I do want the gravel part in there. You could do it on a mountain bike. You can do it on a fat bike, whatever you want. But here's the thing, Hottie. I've had people ask, too, is like, well, I only have a road bike or I don't live anywhere near dirt. So what can I do? Can I still take part? And absolutely. Anyone can ride anything anywhere and be part of the whole community and the 8-week buildup. It's just if you want to be on the leaderboard for prizes and for awards, and rankings, we do ask that you meet those criteria, just like you would a normal race.
Well, and a perfect example of that, Rebecca, is you brought up the DEI component of your event. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look, folks, this is a podcast. You can't see us, but there's probably no mystery here. You're hearing from 3 white people, right?
Yeah.
And 3 white people don't understand the experience of obviously everyone in this world. Has been totally proven to us in the last few months, if you've watched the news at all. And regarding whether you can access dirt or not, I mean, there's people, hopefully people listening to this podcast who live in urban environments who getting to the dirt is very difficult. So being able, Rebecca, for those folks to use a road bike or use whatever bike they have at their disposal to participate in this event is going to obviously make your Reba Nation that much bigger, which is very important. So tell us about that diversity, equity, and inclusion component that you're trying to pursue through the RPI challenge.
Yeah, so where our team is researching, I mean, that's where we're going to target our funding. And so right now, kind of like we did for Giddy Up Challenge for COVID-19 relief, we're researching groups that are doing cool things in this area. And so what I like to do with Private Idaho is I like to usually partner with a global, a national, and local organization so that we're kind of, spreading our love around in different areas. And so on our website, we haven't officially targeted all of the groups that we're going to work with, but some of the ones that we're working with and researching for global is Black Lives Matter. And nationally, the League of American Bicyclists have had a long history in doing this kind of work. Locally, we're looking at a couple groups. One that we've committed to, our first one we've committed to is the Hottie Foundation in LA. And Rasan Bahati is an athlete and bike racer, and he does a lot of work. His foundation has been going for 10 years, getting kids in inner city LA on bicycles and educating them on bikes. And then we're also looking at a couple in the Chicago area because I'm from Chicago and have roots there. Blackstone Bicycle Works is one group we're talking to. And so we're really vetting people and calling up and seeing how our mission statement with the Be Good Foundation aligns with theirs. And, the mission for the Be Good is to use the bicycle as a catalyst for healing, evolution, and empowerment. And so this all fits in perfectly, and I'm super excited. And we're talking about some scholarships for the for Rebecca's Private Idaho Challenge for groups, like you said, Hottie, that maybe don't have access to a bike or, I hope through all of this, through all of us riding, we're going to actually be able to expand the cycling community and create an opportunity for a lot more people to ride who haven't had access before.
I love it. You are really stretching what RPI is about and who it is for with this event. I mean, it's always been the case that terrible things force some people to do their very best work ever, right? It is through difficult times that we grow and become amazing. And so I love what you were doing here. All that said, this is a horrible pivot. It's hard. And I love the way that you said somewhere in this, like, some days I just feel like being lazy. Yeah, I like Hottie. So Rebecca's saying that she's lazy. You're not lazy. But I am selfish. And so as a cyclist, as someone with, a certain amount of money to spend on races and training and on everything else, what exactly would you say that I am getting out of doing this?
Yeah, so there's 2 levels of the membership, and thanks for asking that, because this is a hybrid, this is a new concept, and probably the hardest thing for us right now is educating people on what it is and what we're actually trying to do, because it is more expansive than RPI has normally been. It's a lot more complicated and bigger than coming to Idaho and riding your bike. And so there's 2 membership levels. There is the full, what we're calling the full experience level, which is all access. And that's $199 for 8 weeks. And what you get out of that is your 8-week training program at whatever level or distance that you choose. You get an 8-week nutrition program. You get access to my network of people like Kelly Starrett from the Ready State, who is a mobility expert on, how to be pain-free and get the most performance out of your body. You're going to get mindfulness work from Headspace and a neurologist friend of mine, Dr. David Petrino, who works for Red Bull High Performance. You're really going to get 8 weeks of full access to all those training programs, but also live content, tips for me. I'm going to be doing gear reviews. I'm going to be talking about all sorts of things like how do you go to the bathroom in bib shorts, and should I have 1-by or 2-by, and how do I load my Garmin? And so really I'm sharing my network and everything I know with everybody else who comes into the membership program. So that 8-week, that $199 experience membership gets you that full 8 weeks of all that. You're also connecting to your community, and there'll be ways where you can engage in the webinars and ask me questions, engage in a Facebook group, and at the end of it all, we execute the challenge. And ultimately, with the fundraising goals that we've talked about, and the groups that we've talked about of getting more people on bikes. There's the second level of the membership. If you're not sure and, you don't need the full 8 weeks of training, or you don't feel like that's something that's in your wheelhouse, there's a $49 challenge membership. And really that is, tapping into the community and, being able to engage. And there's some of the content is available to you. And then the challenge weekend on Labor Day weekend. So there's those two levels. For me, the training program alone, we've all known training programs are, that's a $99 value. So that alone is really great. The nutrition program is pretty high value. And so it's worth it. You're going to basically get world-class access to everything that I know and my network of professionals know, all in one kind of one-stop shopping for performance. And this isn't just for elite-level athletes. It's for anyone who wants to ride a bike and complete a challenge at the end of it and really raise their fitness and their ability and how they're riding. So I'm super excited about it. Actually, I actually, because I've been working so hard on this, I have not been training very much. And my coach is like, what's it going to take to get you back to your training? I'm like, how about we invite the whole world to train with me and hold me accountable? And so I'm really excited to start Monday because I need to get off my butt and I need to be accountable for my own health and wellness and fitness. And we're all working towards a really cool thing at the end of it. And doing fundraising bike rides is not a new thing, but I feel like at this time in 2020, we need to take care of ourselves personally, and we also really have the need to do something proactive to all of the hurt and pain that we're seeing in our world right now. And so this is a way to take care of yourself and do something proactive to make our world a little bit better place. And I feel like 2020, we all really need that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in a normal year at Rebecca's Private Idaho, the event is centered around this Memorial, or rather Labor Day extravaganza. You've got, the 4-day stage race, if you're in that, or the single day 100-miler, whatever event you might sign up for, the Great Expo, the swag I talked about. It's all kind of centered around that one event. But it seems like, Rebecca, that this is more about, in fact, the value really is in the weeks leading up to Labor Day weekend. That is where the journey is what you're selling. Well, it's not really selling, but what you're offering here as opposed to the weekend.
Yeah, the challenge is the icing on the cake. And we all know you don't just show up to something prepared. It takes effort and time and commitment. And it really is a team. And, none of us can do anything really great alone. We always have teammates on our side. But yeah, this whole 8-week lead up program, and that's the part that people are trying to wrap their head around. They're like, yeah, but there's no expo. I'm like, yeah, there is, but we're connecting for 8 weeks. And so what's really cool is what I'm really proud of is all of our sponsors have stayed on board because they see the value in, hey, I'm going to get to connect with people for 8 weeks. I'm going to get to teach them how to use the Garmin. I'm going to get to teach them what, SRAM Eagle means and what it is. And so I'm trying as best I can to mimic an experience, an in-person experience, in a new way. And I actually feel like, I think you're right. I actually feel like this has the potential to have more impact, be global, have more riders, have more time with people, and connect on a deeper level instead of just high-fiving at a finish line and then you go home. We're going to actually spend a lot of time together over the next 8 weeks.
Yeah. Something that I will sort of add as a I guess, sort of example of the kind of experience that Rebecca, having Rebecca's inspirational and educational abilities is, and you and I've talked about this a number of times in other podcasts, other stories, but Lisa was my wife was was it 3 weeks away from the Leadville 100 when you called one time and said, "Hey, how about you join me and I will sort of mentor you through the ride." And you set a goal together, and over a couple of days and a very hard workout together, you essentially brought Lisa from being a good solid 9.5 hour Leadville finisher to being an 8 hours and 48 minutes Leadville finisher.
Yes.
Having the experience and ability and knowledge of Rebecca Rusch and the people that Rebecca Rusch has learned from herself is not just something that you can make little strides with. I myself, that is how I transformed from being an 8 hours and 45 minute finisher to being an 8 hour and 15 minute finisher. I mean, I've picked up tips and help that made huge differences in my riding. This is me saying Rebe is the real deal.
Thank you, Fatty. I mean, and that was so cool. And I had so much fun with Lisa because I want people to know, like, I get just as much joy from fast tracking her or you or helping somebody be their best and get right to the meat of like how to be better. I get so much joy out of that. I get so stoked, that finish line with Lisa was really a highlight for me. And it was my slowest Leadville time ever, but it didn't matter because I was so celebrating with her and it was so much fun. And that's really what this program is about is I want to help people and I want to bring them in. And then I want to celebrate on Labor Day weekend with people around the world of like, yeah, look what we did. Look what we did together and look at the impact we're making in the cycling community. So
the two webinars sound terrific, Reba. You have Rush Hour, great name, by the way. And the Science in Stoke, which I also love. Now, and there's also this interaction component, as I understand, too. So if somebody has a specific question that pertains to how they're getting ready for the RPI Challenge weekend, say they're doing the 56 miler and they're wanting something specific about their preparation, how's that interaction going to work? Can they just reach out? Will they be directed a certain way? Are you going to be able to field, all comers, all callers?
Yeah, this is not just me spouting information at people. It's a back and forth. And so there's a Facebook group where people can interact with me and our coaches and our experts and ask questions. There is going to be a chat forum in every one of the webinars where you can ask questions. I'll probably put out on social media here and there or in newsletters like, hey, what do you guys want to hear this week on Science in Stoke? And so there is quite an interactive back and flow where, like I said, we're teammates. And so if you have questions to ask, there's going to be multiple ways to reach out to our community and engage and even shape the content as we're going to have new content every single week based on what people are asking and what questions they want to know. And so I do want people to engage and ask questions. One, if they have questions about their training program, but also if they're like, hey, I really want to know about, what kind of pillow you use for neck pain, or I really want to know about those bike shorts that you were talking about. And so yeah, there is going to be a back and forth flow of communication. And that was really important to me, that it's not just this website of stuff that I'm putting in your guys' face, but it's actually an interactive, content that's changing every week and content that's being shaped by the people who are involved and who are on the team.
Fatty, it was in 2011 or 2012, I made my first outreach to Rebecca Rusch. And she was this was back in the early days of webinars and this stuff we're talking about now. And I'll never forget it because I had come home from Leadville without a gold buckle and I asked her and she answered. I said, what would be your one piece of advice for breaking 9 hours at Leadville? And she said, pit stops, make your stops fast. And that's what Mrs. Hottie and I did in 2013. And got a gold buckle out of it. So it does work, folks. And this stuff is very valuable. Like, people don't just give this stuff away normally, or it doesn't come in this type of package normally. That you go and sign up for a race and you get all these other goodies. You get all this other kind of information. This is very unique, and that's what makes it very intriguing, I think.
Yeah. Rebecca doesn't, I would say there are very few people who have anywhere close to as much endurance experience as Rebecca. And so the listeners to this podcast in specific, people who are thinking about 2021 Leadville, what you learn for this RPI challenge is going to, I would say, directly apply to have, to the time that you can, the minutes that you can subtract from your finish time in 2021, 2022, whenever you're able to get back onto the starting line.
For sure. This is training and education that is not just for Private Idaho. It absolutely is going to bring your fitness and your abilities up a notch for the next races that you end up getting to do in person. So 100% Fatty. And it's not just going to be me. I mean, I'm going to bring in experts like Ted King and Casey Armstrong and Josh Berry and a whole bunch of my friends who have raced Leadville or other endurance events. So you're not just going to be hearing me spout at you, but you're going to get access to a whole group of other people who have a ton of race experience as well, and ride experience. And I don't want people to feel like this is just for racers either. I want to make sure like, if you don't know how to change a flat tire, that content's going to be on there too. And so really it is a little bit of, the members' choice of which content they get drawn to and which webinars really appeal to them and what types of questions they want to have answered. So it really is all level, hopefully, and all inclusive for everyone.
So a question that kind of builds off all of this, Reba, is, suppose this does pretty well. Is this something that in 2021, when hopefully we can all start going back to the events that we love and the places that we love to go to, is this something that maybe would be in addition to the regular RPI?
Yeah, you've read my mind. I believe that this can be a really amazing model for even when we are meeting as a group. Idaho is not accessible for everybody, and also my permit is limited to 1,500 people. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to limit the scope of what I have to offer and the way that we can connect as a community. And that's really what Giddy Up showed me, is that we don't physically have to be in the same place to feel connected. And so you're exactly right. I hope in future events we'll still have the in-person Private Idaho, and alongside at the same time, people around the world might be riding their own Private Idaho in South Africa or wherever else it is. And so I do see this model of the RPI challenge being able to go in tandem with the in-person RPI in the future.
Rebecca, I know RPI challenge is the only thing probably on your mind right now, but let's talk a little bit about what's coming down the road. When you do, are you anticipating that there's going to be a 2021 event, and will it be on the same weekend? And also, what's in store for you? I mean, have you started to look ahead a little bit? Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel for your personal adventures that you still want to knock down?
Yeah, my personal adventures are alive and well, and I live in a state that has a lot of bike exploring to do. And so my goals and my missions right now is I have some bike packing projects here in Idaho that I'll be tackling. And, oftentimes I'm traveling a lot during the year, and so I don't get a chance to do them. So I will be, during the RPI challenge, I'll be doing a couple overnighters and some bike packing that hopefully I can encourage others to maybe go out on the weekend where they live. But yeah, I have some pretty big Idaho goals. And then also the registration just opened for the 2021 Iditarod Trail Invitational. And my goal is, I have signed up for the 1,000-mile version this year to go all the way from Anchorage to Nome.
Oh, Reba, you were so lazy.
But I need to train for it. This is why we need to start the RPI challenge, because I haven't been training. I haven't been focused. And I really need this right now too, for my own self. Yeah. To have the whole world motivate me, since I couldn't do it myself.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I feel like I am getting in a lot of fun rides. I'm having a great time. I am probably 20 pounds overweight, and doing the RPI the regular way right now would shatter me. So I'm looking forward to signing up for this and describing my progress in future episodes of this show. Hottie, you got to sign up too.
I know I do. Another small detail here too we want to get to, Rebecca, and that is if folks are hearing this, sometime after July 13th and they still want to get in, can they join in on, the full challenge somehow and get in on the webinars, even though they may miss the official start date?
Absolutely. We start July 13th, and the official 8-week training starts, I think, this July 16th. But absolutely, anyone can come in anytime. It's just like coming late to a party. You might have missed a little bit of the stuff in the beginning, but it doesn't make it any less fun. And the content will be available online, so people can go in. It's really, the training program does start soon, and so if you really want to maximize your fitness and your training and the effect of, being committed to that, then I would encourage people to get on and sign up right away so they get the most of their training. But yeah, you can come in anytime. Everybody's welcome.
Well, let's go ahead and use that as a final word in this episode. Let's wrap up season 3, episode 17, our first bonus episode of the season of the Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Podcast presented by Floyd's of Leadville. For the show, you can also call us the RPI Challenge Podcast, because it definitely has been about that. And if you love the show, please go give us a 5-star rating and a review over at Apple Podcasts and share it with your other cycling friends. Support our sponsors. Let them know you appreciate them making this show possible.
Meanwhile, if you have ideas or questions for us, head to the Leadville100podcast.com comment section and get in touch. That's also where you can find a link to our Slack workspace and jump into our ongoing conversation.
Oh, we had to set up a Slack workspace for you, Reba. I'll help you. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
and meanwhile, we'll set up an RPI challenge area on the Leadville podcast workspace. If this is unfamiliar to some of you, join Slack. You'll pick it up. We're going to be talking more about Rebecca's event on the show, and we would love to have your input.
Good luck in your training. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Strava or Facebook or Instagram, wherever you are tracking your progress for the RPI Challenge.
Hey, everyone. I am so stoked to tell you that Rebecca's Private Idaho is on for 2020 in a new and expanded and totally different version.